What's up guys, I'm the Nerd Mechanic and this is PC Essentials Part 3. Now, this episode is going to be a little different in that in parts 1 and 2, which I will definitely put in the description below, I talked mainly about parts. In this episode, I'm going to go a little more in depth and in detail about how those certain parts work. Stick around, we got some good information. So guys, have you ever wondered why it's really important to keep your computer cool, or why manufacturers of cases actually focus a lot on cooling and fans? Well, it's because you don't want your components to overheat. Now, why does this happen and why do they produce heat? Well, certain components like your CPU and the hard drive, RAM and the graphics card, they all do processes that actually create heat. They do have an operating temperature, I guess you could say it's almost like a safe operating temperature that they're rated at. If they go above that to a certain degree, it could possibly damage it from the heat. Some of these things come with a heat sink, and the heat sink basically helps it evenly distribute the heat. So with these heat sinks, normally with an air-cooled system, you have a fan that's actually attached to the heat sink. So when you buy a air cooler for your CPU, it usually comes with a giant heat sink with a fan attached to it. So that way the heat comes up through the heat sink, and then you have the fan blowing the cool air over it or basically across it to move that hot air out. There's two basic types of cooling. There are others, but we're not going to really get into those. But the two most basic types that enthusiasts use are air cooling and water cooling. Air cooling is what I just said. Air cooling is literally a heat sink with a fan attached to it. And as the heat goes through the heat sink, the fan blows it out and blows the hot air out of your system. Now, water cooling, it's similar, but it's a little different, and in my opinion, it's a little more efficient, though air cooling is very efficient. Water cooling is basically water running over, cooler water running over the heat, taking that heat and transporting it up into a radiator that has fans attached to it, and these fans are blowing across it and blowing the heat out of the radiator. And the cooler water comes back, picks up more heat, and it's just a continuous cycle. So with water cooling, it is a little more expensive. They do have all-in-one units where it literally comes with the radiator, the hoses, and the block that attaches to a CPU usually all together. Another route you can take is a custom loop, where you literally build everything yourself. So you're gonna have to bend your own hoses, you're gonna have to buy your own fittings, you're gonna have to buy your own block, and you're gonna have to buy your own radiator and fans and put it together yourself. Now this is a little more of an enthusiast thing and a little more complicated, and it's actually a lot more money than the all-in-one systems, but it does make your computer look cool if you want a nice custom look. That, and you can put whatever type of liquid you want, whatever color you want, and it does make your system look pretty cool. There's some pretty cool custom systems out there. So that's the basics of cooling. Okay guys, so the next type of memory that I'm going to talk about is a type of memory called flash memory. Now, usually we really don't take for granted this thing. I mean, flash memory is in a lot of different devices that we use. Flash memory is in our cell phones, our computers, it's in USB drives or thumb drives that we transfer data to between different devices. It's in a lot of different things nowadays. So what is flash memory? Well, flash memory is actually a type of non-volatile memory, or NVMe. Sounds a little familiar, right? So this type of memory is a type of memory that doesn't need a continuous power supply from a power supply. So that way it actually makes a lot of room in our PCs. Basically, it makes it a lot smaller and more convenient and a lot faster. So flash memory is actually a type of memory that stores its information in units called blocks. Now, these blocks can be erased or overwritten and reprogrammed, but the only thing is, it doesn't need a continuous power supply. Basically, these blocks can store information whether it has power or not. So the big advantage of this is we can make them a lot smaller and low latency, which means faster transfers between the computer and maybe your CPU. If you look at an SSD or an M.2 SSD, you can see how much smaller they are compared to a big mechanical hard drive. Also, no noise, and they'll keep storing the information once the computer is off. So my next topic is going to be PCIe lanes. Now, if you ever wondered exactly how does your motherboard or CPU know what's plugged in, well, it's the PCIe lanes. So there's something called PCIe slots, which are the slots that actually your graphics card will hook into. If you look on the motherboard, you'll see them. These slots are connected with lanes that communicate to your CPU. Now, each lane has a basically input and output lane. So there's a lane sending information and then there's a lane receiving information. So usually when you see motherboard specs, or if you see a processor spec, you'll see something like PCIe lane 16 most of the time. Now, 16 means that most of the time that graphics card slot may have 16 PCIe lanes. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean your graphics card's going to use all 16 of those lanes, but when you do have one plugged in, you've got 16 lanes for communication between the CPU and the graphics card. Now, one cool thing is if you have two slots and you want to do dual graphics cards, it'll actually break those two up, and then that way you'll have 8 PCIe lanes for one graphics card and you'll have another 8 for the other graphics card. Now, your chipset does actually allot those lanes to the different components. So PCIe lanes are basically to me, I see it as an expressway. If you look at an expressway, you have traffic and cars going to and from, or north and south or east and west. That's one PCIe lane. So there's information going to a component or the CPU, and then there's information coming back to the GPU, let's say. So communication between your CPU and your actual devices are these lanes of information. So guys, that's actually it for my video. I kept it quick and kept it short. If you guys actually like what I'm doing, if you like this series, let me know down in the comments. If you have any other suggestions, or if you would like to know about anything else that you're curious about or you're not sure about, let me know down in the comments and we can talk about them. Also, I just want to make a note, every Monday night, guys, I'm going to be streaming a game. It's going to be, I don't know if it's going to be the same game yet, but if it gets popular or if it's something that you guys want to actually see, I'll keep doing that game. But other than that, I'm going to try to mix the games up, and we're going to try to do newer games that just came out, hopefully, if I can. So definitely check in on my channel on Monday nights, where I'll be streaming and just relaxing. It's supposed to be a relaxing Monday night thing just to kind of get you through that day. So guys, don't forget to like this video if you like it, and if you love it, consider subscribing. And when you do subscribe, hit that bell icon so that way you get notified when I upload a video, and I will see you in the next episode.